Today we're talking with Amos, the co-founder of Swan AI. They are building an AI that automates the go-to-market engine. We are going to talk how they try to make any human 10 to 100x more efficient, why, why he believes in personal brand, and why they're betting on analog and traveling the world to meet customers.
It's not my first rodeo. I've actually built and scaled two B2B startups based on the old playbook, the unicorn playbook, growth at all costs model, where you raise a ton of money before you know who you're selling to. And you get to 30, 40 people before you get to your first $1 million in revenue. And then kind of like sooner or later, you realize that there's like so much bloat at the company and you need to maneuver and so hard to do it with, with all that headcount. And in Swan, I felt like, with this rise of agentic workflows and AI agents in the workforce, I felt like it's time to reinvent the playbook of how do you scale a business, from 0 to 1, from 1 to 10. And so Swan is really kind of like this journey about discovering this new model. We call it the autonomous business. It's a business that is kind of like architected from the ground up towards scaling with intelligence, not with headcount. Human intelligence and artificial intelligence working together. It's about scaling ARR per employee rather than just valuation. So we think that that's the most important metric to measure in an AI native world that really can become a good proxy for how much leverage you're creating for your talent with using AI. In 2025, we just the three founders, we scaled, from 0 to over 200 customers, 7 figures in ARR without any kind of like additional headcount, just us and a lot of AI agents helping us along the way. And our goal eventually is to get to $10 million ARR per employee. That's what this company is about, and kind of like show the world that there's a new model to scale.
You have agents. And I think you started with many agents, and now most recently, I think was it like 7. If you can talk me through this journey of iteration and where you are now and where you maybe hoped even to get.
Yeah. So the initial intuition for the tech community, with agents was there's going to be a lot of agents and we need a specialized agent for everything, right? So similar to kind of like how humans operate. You think, oh, you need an agent for writing emails, and then you need an agent for outreach, and maybe you need an AI SDR, and then you need an AI CMO or whatever. And we try kind of like hacking different ways into it. And what we did is we were too focused on kind of like the process of the agent rather than the environment that the agent actually lives in. And what happened over time is that at Swan, we just came down to just one agent for our entire go-to-market operations. And the difference is that agent is basically a coding agent with a file system, with a knowledge base. You can think of it that it can just, use that knowledge base and iterate on it in runtime, et cetera. What does that allow you and give you is, instead of humans working on every agent and separately and trying to fix those and improve them, you have an agent that has a knowledge base. And then if you want to specialize in a task, the knowledge allows the agent to specialize in that task, but it's the same agent and it can access different areas of the knowledge base in runtime. And then it can even iterate on that knowledge base by itself, and it can kind of like improve itself over time and change the way that it works. And so what it gives you is flexibility and scalability to have just one agent in a file system, unified all of the agentic workflows under one umbrella. And what eventually we realize is that we need the agents to specialize at just one thing, which is moving inside a digital environment. Okay. That is what the agent specialized in. That is why a coding agent that can communicate with his environment using code is actually a much powerful implementation of an agent, rather than having the agent write in language, trying to abstract away all the digital environment into language as well, and just having to do one specific task, like, like a very small cog in the wheel, right? So instead of building like that, what you give is you create general purpose agent that can do anything inside a digital environment because it's built natively to move around that digital environment freely without any obstacles. And you give it a knowledge base, a file system that allows it to specialize and understand processes within the business and mimic those and kind of like perform at the best way possible and improve itself over time.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you cannot just use Claude, right? So you cannot just tell Claude to run your business. You need to have some solid fine tuning, I guess. And you mentioned a lot of knowledge. So the I guess clean data and accurate data becomes even more important than ever before.
Yeah, so I would say two things. One, data integrity and accuracy is becoming more important than ever. Yes, that's true. But I would say that there's a misunderstanding about AI. People think that data equals context. Okay, but that's not true. Okay, and context for AI is to understand how does the business operate and what is good and what is bad. What types of best practices do we have? What bad practices do we have, et cetera? And data doesn't tell that story, right? And if you kind of like throw an agent on your CRM, it can look at deals and can learn a lot of bad practices in those deals. There's, no one fills up notes and explains, the band about this deal because no one really updates the CRM. So the agent might think, that's what we do at the company. We don't update the band about a record because we don't care about it probably. Or deals are jumping from step 1 to step 5. Oh, that's how we usually do. We take them from step 1 to 5. But what happens, like the rep didn't have time to actually move it to 2,
Yeah,
3, and
yeah,
4,
yeah.
right? So data doesn't equal context, and that's like a very false assumption of a lot of people. And what you actually need to have for AI to work as powerful as possible within your business environment is to teach it what's good and wrong, how does the
Hmm.
processes looks like, and without it's worth nothing. And that process, we call it context engineering, and it's a skill that anyone, especially if we're talking about RevOps, that will be the number one skill that RevOps will be measured by, is how well could they articulate to the AI what's the process looks like, where's the data lives, what's good, what's bad, etc. And the way that you do it with a coding agent, that's why having just one is very powerful, is you just have a knowledge base. You have docs that explain what's your ICP, what's your assignment logic, what's your funnel looks like, etc. And then you just need to make sure that the agent knows when to access these docs. And if you solve that, that's context engineering, basically.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And you mentioned a few times this one agent. Like, how do you maintain that agent, or does it maintain themselves?
No, agent can't maintain themselves. That's the job of
Mm.
humans. So we're moving to a world where humans were doing a lot of execution, but then we have agents that can do the execution itself. Now it's our job. The humans are in charge of reviewing their work, giving them feedback, and improving them. So first of all, it's the job of the humans to do it, and that's actually context engineering. It's
Hmm.
actually reviewing. So the process of context engineering is looks like that. You need to specify well to the agent what to do. So what's the process here? What's good looks like? Where the data lives? Which systems to interact with, etc. That's the specification. Then you have the reviewal process. When the agent does the work, you want to review it because it won't do a good job at the first time. Just like even the smartest person on planet Earth, if they will come to your job and will try to do what you're just teaching them, they wouldn't nail all the use cases at the first hit. You'll need to keep on improving their context about the job. So specification, review, context engineering. That's like the process. That's how you work with agents. And that will always be the case, even 20 years from now. That's how we work with artificial intelligence, basically. And that's the job of humans in this new environment, and especially RevOps. And
Hmm.
basically, a coding agent, the reason why it's powerful, because it's the easiest way to work with it. You just specify the process, and because it can just move naturally within the digital environment, it can write code, it can communicate with APIs, it can build apps, it can write scripts, it can do all the stuff that you need it to do within the digital world. You don't even need to understand a lot of these technical details. You need to just be well at specifying the process and what's good looks like, and then reviewing the output and then giving it feedback to improve it and impacting the context engineering process as you go.
Okay, it's a continuous feedback loop in that regard.
Never ending, never ending.
Never ending.
That's what we do. That's what's left in an AI native world, is just, to improve the work of AI agents, and it will always be the work of humans. And we could automate some of it, etc. But it's always like our responsibility. It's our ownership to make sure that they do a good job. And I always love telling people that, if you have AI agents helping you generate pipeline and you missed, your pipeline goals in Q1, you're not going to fire your agents, right? It's not what you're going to do, right? You're going to fire the people that build those agents, right? Whether it's a vendor, whether it's an agency, or whether it's your RevOps person that didn't build these agents well enough, right? So it will always be the ownership of a human, not an agent, right?
Nice. So what can the agents do, like on 3 levels? What is like where you see, okay, happy autonomous, this is great, where you still see some semi-human interaction with autonomous, and where do you maybe hope in the coming few years to also automate further?
Yeah, so I get asked this question a lot, and I think it's the wrong way to look at it, actually. So,
Okay.
yeah. So you need to look at it 2 different levels. So one, you should constantly ask yourself what should be fully automated, what should be semi-automated, and what should be human first. Okay. These are just 3 questions that you always ask yourself, and it's a matter of resource allocation. Okay. So if you have a ton of volume of inbound leads, okay, and you don't have enough manpower to handle that in a good way, then you might say, okay, let's take the lowest value leads and let's fully automate, the interaction with them to try to get them on as a sales qualified lead. Then you take the medium ones and you allow the AI to do 90% of the work, and then kind of like leave 10% for the human. And then you have like the highest value leads, and you want to say, yeah, that's where we want our humans to be focused on. And because humans plus AI is always better than just AI. Okay. It's just that's how intelligence work. If you have an agent that does the job and you have then another agent that looks at the job, you can get to a better outcome, right? Same thing. Humans and AI will always be just AI, right? And so you have the highest value leads always go to humans plus AI, with an emphasis on more creative and more strategic work for the humans. Medium goes more to the AI, less to the human, but still collaboration. Low is like fully automated. That's like a mental model. You can think about everything, basically. And it's all a matter of resource allocation. And you need to constantly iterate on it and ask yourself, like, I want my humans to just be focused on the most strategic things that they are most competent in. And I want the AI to take the most lowest hanging fruits, the low level shit that humans don't want to do, basically. And that's how you create that resource allocation machine. That's one way to look at it. The second way, which is the most important one, that's how you connect them, is that, especially in go-to-market, go-to-market is always like a zero-sum game, in the sense that you're fighting over the attention of the buyer, over like a finite budget most of the time. And it's kind of like there's a lot of competition, and you just want to be different. You want to be unique. You want to be better than the other people, right? It's not like in software development where you just want to build and build and build and build and build. In GTM, different is better than better. Okay. And what you need to understand is you need to find your unique value proposition, your unique DNA in the organization that makes you special, and double down on it in terms of your humans. What does that mean, Harris? If you have a good cold calling DNA, then you don't need to give cold calling to the AI. You just want to make sure that your reps are spending their entire day on the phone, and AI kind of like amplifies it 24/7 from all around, basically, right? Then you have like LinkedIn and email automation. AI can take care of that, for example. And with Swan, I'm really good at storytelling, and I'm really good at kind of like, playing the LinkedIn game. So I will never let AI automate my post creation and kind of like do that, because then I will lose all of my edge, right? So what we're doing is we built like an entire AI machine around my post creation process, so that we can, squeeze the juice out of it, push it even further, but we will never automate that, right? Because that would defeat the purpose. Then my post becomes like everybody else's posts, right?
Exactly.
So that rule will remain true for GTM, forever. Why? Because, you just want to be better than your competition, right? In GTM, you just want to be outbeat them. You want to be different. And if you would give everything to the AI, you would just lose your alpha, your differentiation, because everyone can use AI in an AI native world. It's not interesting, right? So you need to always think of it as a resource allocation machine. And the top of the resource allocation goes to humans, and you should double down on what you are specifically good at.
No, definitely. Let's take me to the next question. Adam is also very strong in it, personal brand marketing. So, what do you see the role of personal brand marketing and making that probably to differentiate? Because yeah, everyone has the same tools. Everyone could build something similar.
Yeah, so I think that in a lot of areas in GTM, AI is not a revolution; it's an evolution. Okay, it's just a continuous amplification of a specific process that is already happening. Okay, to your regards, and there's like tons of different areas where it's happening, but to your regards, it's about the erosion of trust. Okay, in GTM and sales automation started that process. Automation started eroding the trust of buyers because suddenly every, SMB in the world, no matter where you are, could start blasting like 100,000 emails at buyers and people. And then we started going through this phase where, buyers feels bombarded, everyone telling them stuff, and they feel like I can't believe anyone, etc. AI took that like 100x to the exponent where now everyone can just, generate personalized spam at scale and everyone can kind of like promise you that they can build anything, right? But you don't really know about the quality of that, and you don't know if that is really helpful, and you don't know if you should listen to that person or not, etc. And in this world, trust is becoming like the number one differentiator between companies, right? And then you should ask yourself, how can you build trust at scale and in a way that is repeatable, right? And kind of like you can engineer that. And, personal brands are the number one way to do that at scale. And what we're starting to see right now is that, the last 5 years, it was just proof that, yeah, in B2B, personal brands are exploding. And you have like, the CEO of Zoom Info going on every like week, posting about like a new feature, stuff like that. There are ways to do it in a good way or in a bad way, but
The cringe way, yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But you see that marketing teams are understanding the fact that, personal brands should be at the front. What is the next phase that are already happening right now is taking your entire leadership and your entire company eventually to try to build their own personal brands. What we're doing at Swan right now is that every person on the team should start building their personal brand, and we're actually turning them into a media operation machine. So we just hired Jeremy, who's our VP of autonomous GTM, okay, who was like a VP sales, and he's coming to manage agents. He's not going to manage, reps, right? But we're building his brand into a media operation. He's going to have his own newsletter. His own newsletter. It's not the company's newsletter. Like I have a newsletter. I have a personal brand on LinkedIn. I go on podcasts. Jeremy has a personal brand on LinkedIn. Jeremy has his newsletter. Jeremy's going to go on podcast. And when Jeremy goes on a podcast, he's not going as a VP sales of Swan. He's just going as Jeremy, right? Because
Yeah.
people want to listen to Jeremy. So we're seeing like, again, a continuation of that because of AI for everyone to build their own personal brands. What is also happening there, Harris, which I think is interesting, is to build trust, we're going to see what I call the rise of the analog. Okay, so analog experiences are going to become much more prominent and much more powerful in GTM. That's why we are an AI native company with a small team, and we're running an event motion where I'm flying around the world for events to meet people face to face and telling the story of Swan, because, in an AI native world, nothing beats the personal connection.
Yeah.
And if you can create powerful analog experiences, then that's a moat, right? No one can do that at scale using AI, right? So trust is the number one game that we're playing in GTM right now.
Nice. Nice. Sounds amazing. And I've agreed basically in everything you are saying. Um, what is your plan for the future? Increasing your cloud bill or hire more?
Yeah, so I would say both, okay? But eventually, what we are realizing that today it is more efficient to focus on hiring the best talent in the world. And then instead of hiring more, try to scale them to their 100x version of themselves. So right now we have more demand than Jeremy could handle. And a lot of people tell me, look, you're just wasting a lot of revenue right now. You can just hire more sellers and they could just, handle more demand right now than Jeremy could. But what people don't understand is that every day that Jeremy works and we're building agentic workflows around Jeremy, Jeremy's capacity is growing. Okay. And it's not fixed. It's constantly growing and growing and growing and growing. And we're actually taking the most talented seller on the planet and kind of like replicating it to have like massive scale so he can support like 100x the capacity that he had when he started the job. And that's much more efficient than trying to hire and onboard and educate and enable 10 other sellers in the same time. Right. And so we are planning on doing it in a different way. We're scaling our headcount in a way that we take one talented person and then we scale them to the maximum that they could scale themselves, which is right now we're not hitting that wall. There's so much more to harness. And when we
Mm-hmm.
hit, when we're going to hit that wall, we're going to get, okay, let's take another one. And then let's scale that person to their 100x. And so the way that companies scale in an AI native world is not the same as before, because before you had like a ceiling on the capacity of a person. So you brought a person, you knew the capacity, and then you want to bring another person. But right now, the capacity is just, a question of how many resources do you invest in that person, right? How many intelligence resources, how many tokens are you investing in that person? And so you can deploy more tokens on a specific person to scale them rather than hiring another person. And so that's how the scaling model changes in my point of view. And so I think that, yeah, eventually an autonomous business could grow into a 500-person team. It gets there in a very different way. It would take like maybe 10 years to get to 500 people. And 500 people would operate as 500,000 people like Google does today.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Basically, that also means so many companies had to take a lot of VC funding to basically found their headcount. So what do you see there in the future? Like if everyone does that, there will be less investor money needed. So the case of bootstrapping becomes more interesting. So where do you see the link VC versus bootstrapping?
Yeah. I actually think that autonomous business, that this model is not only a new model for founders, it's also a new model for investors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what it gives investors, and what we've actually seen that in the last 15 years, VCs aren't doing well. You get the one top 0.1 percentile of VCs that are making tons of monies, and then the 99.9 other percentage of VCs not really, making it better, beating the S&P 500. They're just not managing to do that. And what autonomous businesses promise is actually, a business that requires much less capital. It's not like it doesn't require any capital,
Yeah.
but it requires significant less capital, and it has much higher chances of succeeding because it's a more cash efficient business, right? It's not like you're trying to raise $200 million to build a business, and if you can't raise these 200 millions, you're going to fail. You might need 5 million, you might need 10, 15 million. That's it, and you can still build a massive company, right? It's not like we're trying to build a lifestyle business. I want to replace HubSpot and Clay, and I'm fighting against Claude because I want to be the coding agent for GTM. And I think that's the central place of the stack in this new world. So I want to be the biggest player in GTM. I'm not trying to aim low,
Love the
but
ambition.
but what I'm offering to the investors is like, just a more risk averse, cash efficient way to get there, basically. And what we're going to see, Harris, as I see it, is just a lot more autonomous businesses in the world. And we're going to see in the next 5 years enterprises crashing down and being replaced by autonomous businesses. So you have, companies like Salesforce or HubSpot that are going to be replaced by 10 different types of businesses that are going to be autonomous businesses. And these will be great opportunities for investors and founders. And we're just going to have a lot more of that.
That sounds like a future actually I would also like. One final question, looking at employment and compensation. Where do you see the talent market is going to go and how the compensation might develop?
Yeah, that's true. Right now, it seems like AI is also an amplification for inequality. What it will do is that if you're highly talented, your value to the company because of AI just grew like 100x, right? We're seeing, for example, Jeremy, our VP sales, right? Before Swan, like his value was capped at his capacity because he's like how much he can sell, right? But with AI, you can just scale that and scale it and scale it. So his value is getting much higher. And on the contrast, if you are not that talented and you don't have a lot to contribute, you're actually fighting with AI over like your ability to contribute to the business. And we're already seeing, juniors that don't have any experience and they're not that smart, sorry to say it like that, you could just use Claude for that, right? You can say, like, why do I need someone to just go over these Excels and just organize them if I can just have Claude do that? So we are going to see this inequality even widening. And I do think that the positive thing that is going to happen is that we're going to see a redistribution of work from big enterprises where a lot of people were just cogs in the wheels, of like cogs in the machine, and they had little impact, etc., to a much more distributed world where businesses are much smaller than they were. And there's a lot more businesses just in terms of the sum of the businesses because they are now much smaller. And so people have more impact, have more mobility to actually find themselves in a place that they feel like is their zone of genius, what we call at Swan. Part of the autonomous business is trying to put employees in their zone of genius because that's how you scale them the best way. And so more people will find themselves at better jobs with that gives them more happiness, basically.
I think it's going to be a super exciting future, like the coming years. It's definitely a societal shift almost.
No, yeah, it is. It is. It's first and foremost a societal shift, and then it's a
Hmm.
technological shift.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see it as a software-enabled societal shift. I think that AI in enterprise and B2B, that's what we're talking about. AI in B2B is a software revolution. It's not a labor revolution. It's a software revolution. And what we're seeing, you talked about headless, etc. It's about the rebuilding of the software stack from the ground up around coding agents, basically. And so coding agents are becoming the most fundamental unit in the technological stack, and everything just revolves around them. And the reason why Anthropic is beating the shit out of OpenAI is because Anthropic stumbled upon the fact that coding agents are the most powerful things in this AI revolution.
Okay. Wow. Exciting. Amos, thank you very much. This was amazing.